Hello and welcome back to the Byline. In a week filled with drama from the Premier League, with managers losing their jobs, Chelsea showing the world they don't know how to score, Liverpool showing the world they don't know how to play football, the Championship seems to be doing its best to keep up with the drama and prove that they are the coronation street to the Premier League's EastEnders. So I'm going to start the episode by Ben and Paul doing a quick quiz. What do Derby, Sheffield Wednesday, Wigan, and Reading all have in common?
They are the teams that have been done by FFP breach
That's true.
in
They
the
have
Championship.
all suffered point deductions in the Championship. So, today's conversation is Reading and their point deduction. So, in case you're not aware, Reading were found guilty of breaching FFP rules back in 2019, I do believe, where the club lost a reported 57.8 million between 2017 and 2021. They then received a 6 point deduction last season and a suspended 6 point deduction, which now looks like the suspension has come into fruition. So they have been docked 6 points for breaching FFP. So, guys, what do you think about it?
Well, I mean, the rules are clearly stated, right? So if they're going to breach it by that amount, and then you can't prove accounts or where the money's come from or backing that money up, then I guess it is going to happen. I mean, this sort of suspended 6 points now and then 6 points in a year or 2 years time is a bit crazy, really. It's a bit unfair if they've already been punished for it before, but
I
it's
think if
just
you look though, when they received the initial 6 point deduction, they survived. I think it was by like a point, or something.
yeah.
Where if they'd have just got the full 12 point deduction, they would have ended up being relegated that season. Obviously, they
Mm.
survived. They've had a 6 point deduction this season, which leaves them in 20th place on 40 points, where they're just 1 point above Huddersfield, who are 22nd, 6 points above Wigan, who are bottom of the league. Why do the suspended point deduction? Why not just do it all in one go?
If you've breached it and it's been proven that you've breached it, why have the additional time to then to go through it anymore? Like you've already breached and broken the rules, but I don't know. What were your thoughts, Paul?
I don't agree with point deductions for things like it's an off the field matter. So why is it being punished on the field? Like I think it's something that should be done punishments through the board and things like that. It makes no sense to me to be giving point deductions because one, you're punishing the fans and they've done nothing wrong, and then you're punishing the players and they've done nothing wrong. You
Yeah.
should be punishing the board. It should be some at board level that should be being done.
I
But
think when you've
this
got
this is what you get when the EFL don't do their job properly and they let people that shouldn't be running football clubs run football clubs.
the only thing I'd say in response to that is if you're a club that's been breaching FFP and like obviously they've lost nearly £60 million, what how would you punish the board aside from a fine, which they probably couldn't afford to pay anyway?
Transfer embargoes and things like that is what I
Yeah.
think. You tell them until they can start doing their transfers properly and running their club properly, then you do it that way. You don't let them buy any players, or they can only use their under 21s or under 23s, and or the EFL need some sort of department that goes into clubs and goes, you're not working by the means of the club, so we're going to come in and we're going to take over and we're going to put someone in here that is an EFL person, so like a chief financial officer who can
Yeah,
go in and just be like, well, you don't run your books properly, so we're going to do it. And
yeah.
every time you go to make a transfer, you got to run it by us, and we're going to balance your books. And if it don't add up, it don't happen.
I think like if you've been found to breach it, like with the point that Reading's at now, where obviously they got found guilty of it last year and the point deduction, or sorry, they found guilty in 2019, and then the next season the same things happen, they're suffering another point deduction. I do think that the EFL needs to look at it and say like, okay, well, how can we step in to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And how is the football club going to be run correctly? Ben,
So
what
when
do you?
when the Blues had theirs done, the whole thing was the Blues were put under like a secret transfer embargo and were told to hand over their financial reports. And the EFL was like, "We'll keep it all on the down low. We'll get it all sorted. And when you're sorted, we'll act like nothing ever happened." And then the Blues board went, "Nah, we're going to sign Christian Pedersen," and signed a player. And that's how we ended up with our. That's how we ended up with our points
Oh,
deduction.
yeah.
Is because we were told by the EFL, don't sign anyone until we've had a look at your finances. We will help you with your finances and we'll have a look at it all. And then the Blues board just went, no, we're signing Christian Pedersen.
Is it possible that something similar has happened over at Reading?
It could be something like that. But the problem is, there needs to be more transparency with football club owners and with the EFL itself.
Yeah, I definitely think that there should be more checks put in place onto like the fit and proper ownership test. It's like if that actually worked, you wouldn't have owners like you do at Birmingham City, and owners at other clubs that running a club into £60 million worth of debt is quite ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they could only have had a maximum loss in that period of like 35
Yeah,
million or 37 million, or something around that kind of line. And obviously, having 57.8 or 58 million is obviously goes over. But then you've got, like Paul sort of alluded to, like where the finance is happening and what's happening. Like if someone would have came in, sat down, gone through the books, understood it could be wages, it could be no one really knows until you go in there and have a look at it. But yeah, I think it needs to come in, because I don't think clubs should be able to just go and spend exactly what they want without recovering it, because it's an endless checkbook for all the big teams then.
yeah.
But I think Paul makes a good point though. I think there's different ways of handling it rather than deducting points, because that if that gets them relegated, I mean, look at Portsmouth. So when they went into administration, fairness, it's slightly different, but it killed the club.
Yeah.
They nearly went out of business completely. They're gone all the way down. They went to League Two, and I think they're in League One now. But it's just a way of just killing a club. Look at Derby, 21 points they lost
I think
for administration.
I think obviously there's a conversation that we can have as well about FFP in the Premier League, but I think one sort of similar style scenario where I think if they were to do it right could work is what's happened at Barcelona, where they've been able to go out and sign players, but the La Liga board said you can't register those players. So Barcelona are left in a situation where they've got to pay wages where if they didn't balance the books better, those players wouldn't be able to play for the club. So maybe something along those lines where it's like, look, you can sign these players, but you can't play them because you essentially bought them through cheating.
But that's assuming that the FFP breach or the costings come from purchase of players. Like that's not always the case. I mean, in Blue's case it was, but
yeah, but I mean, if you're breaching FFP and you're signing players,
yeah.
like then there should be even if the signing of the players isn't what caused that breach, you shouldn't be signing players if you can't afford to sign players. It's like
Yeah.
if you've got say your personal monthly outgoings of your mortgage and your car insurance and everything else, and then suddenly you start whacking more and more things on there, eventually the bank's going to go nope. And football clubs should look at it a similar way where they're going, well, you can't afford to buy these players, so you can't play them.
That's a fair comment. I can't really argue about that. I think it's a decent point. But I mean, if you look at recent, I mean, let's just talk about points deduction just for a second as a punishment. If you look at the most recent kind of issues happened, so obviously you got Reading that's lost 6 points. You've got Derby that lost 21 points last season, which ultimately was just too much for them, so they went down. You got Sheffield Wednesday who lost 6 points. You've got Wigan who lost 12 points, and then a potential another 6 points. You got Bolton who went into administration last well, and then obviously Blues that Paul mentioned. Like it affects so many lower league clubs, and for a lower league club, it's so hard, like so much harder to try and recover from that if it's been taken away from you. The punishment needs to be different, in my opinion.
Yeah. The one question I've got, because I'm obviously not 100% sure on this topic, so I'm going to let you two take over a little bit more. But why are some clubs like Derby being hit with a 21-point deduction? Some clubs being hit with a 6-point deduction. Reading are getting a 6-point deduction with a suspended 6-point deduction. It's like, as we always argue about refereeing decisions, there seems to be a lack of consistency, or is it something that they're doing wrong that entitles more of a deduction here and less of a deduction there?
Well,
I think it's to do with the severity of each case. I think I don't know the ins and outs of everything that's gone on, because everything is all murky and underhanded, and the EFL are all like, the EFL are as crooked as any like ownership of any club. They're just as bad as anything. So I think everything is sort of like murky, and certain rules have been broken in certain ways. Depends on, and the severity of what they've done depends on how big a points deduction you get. But
Yeah.
for me, the AFL are just another crooked corporation that runs football.
yeah. I think with Derby as well, the extreme level of that was they got penalised twice. They got penalised for going into administration, and then they got penalised
Yeah.
for breaking FFP.
Oh,
So it's 12
Because
points for
any, like,
administration
I was going to say, you go into administration and that's a point deduction straight away, isn't it? Which I
straight away.
don't get that either. I think that's a weird rule.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
I mean, sometimes you can't handle it.
we're struggling for money, so we're going to go into administration, and then you're going to take what could be a amount of points off us that relegates us into a smaller league where there's less money, so we've got even less chance of surviving. Like
Yeah.
it's like signing the death certificate of a club, just docking on points for administration.
Yeah. You have to sell your best players. You got to rely on youth, which at that level might not be as talented. And then you got to go through the chambers again, and then you obviously got championship teams that want to sign your best youngsters, and it's just a sort of roundabout. I mean, fortunately with Derby, they obviously they got relegated this season, but it's not been a situation where they can't do anything about it. So I think they're doing well in League One at the moment. They'll probably get straight back up, but other teams haven't been so fortunate. Bolton haven't been, although they won the Johnson's Paint Trophy the other day, which is awesome. Portsmouth have struggled since, so it kind of depends on the club, but it's just harsh. It's just very harsh.
I think one of the interesting things as well, when you look at the clubs that have been mentioned, Reading, Wigan, Portsmouth, Derby, they're all former Premier League teams as well, which I suppose brings in the argument behind the Premier League thing, which I kind of alluded to earlier. Like, do these clubs have a right to feel a bit aggrieved that when you look at Man City, who allegedly have breached FFP over 100 times, and it looks, we don't know what their punishment's going to be yet, but if, let's say, for example, the FA didn't give them a punishment, can these clubs look at that and say, well, what's going on there? Why are we being punished and these clubs aren't?
Well, the Premier League's an entity in itself, isn't it? They don't follow anyone else's rules. They govern themselves and they deal with their own things, and that's why it's like when Man City got done in Europe for their financial stuff, and they just hired all the best lawyers, paid a big fine, and then everything was forgotten about it. The same will happen with the Premier League. They'll just go, give us some dough, and we'll just forget all about it.
Yeah. I think it does highlight the fact that there needs to be some kind of bridge between the Premier League and the Championship, because, as you say, like, for a club like Portsmouth, for example, them going with their deductions and the relegations and everything else, it's just become a hill that's just getting them like steeper and steeper and steeper for them to try and climb out of it. And obviously,
Well, the hill, the gap in that is there without the
yeah,
whole
exactly.
thing. You look at Nottingham Forest have just rebuilt a squad for, what is it, 100 and something million pounds, and they still might not survive.
Yeah.
That's the gap. That's the gap you're looking at. That you can spend just under 200 million pounds and still not be good enough to be in the Premier League.
Yeah. And then when you add
I mean,
in
what
point deductions and FFP and the rules that the Championship teams have to abide by.
Well, that's the thing now. So if you get promoted, a sort of standard Championship team. So say, for example, if Luton got promoted, like what chance have they got really? Because they can't afford to go and spend £100 million on players.
Well, they're not a standard Championship side, are they? They're doing miracles on a shoestring budget.
Well, what I mean is they're not blessed with Premier League players. They're not blessed with they're not going to go up there and fit right in the Premier League. My assumption.
Because
their
budget is the lowest in the Championship as well.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're in the playoffs, so there's a realistic chance that they could go up. But how do they survive? But I think as well, just going back to what you said about the bigger clubs, I think there's a sort of clause, isn't there, in the current FFP rules that if you do exceed that a certain level or limit, it can be covered by a direct contribution of the club's owner. So I think if they, for example, rebranded the training ground and then pumped the money into that would cover or offset the cost between what they spent.
That's the reason why Man U have got the DHL training ground and why Man City have the Etihad, everything else, and all that sort of stuff. They sell off sponsorship and naming rights to companies that their club is already owned by. So like Etihad is a company that the people that own Man City already own, but they sponsor everything that Man City do.
Yeah.
It's just taking a chunk of money out of one bank and putting it in another bank.
Yeah.
Which is unfair.
So does that ruling not apply to Championship teams, and they can't sell the naming rights to their training ground and things like that?
Yeah, you can, but it's all to do with your wages, and in the Championship, I think 90% of your turnover, your wages can't be more than some. I don't know the actual ins and outs of it. Like you'd have to properly research it because it all gets confusing. But like the Blues did it, they sold the naming rights of St Andrews and the training ground, and it became the
Trillion Trophy Stadium.
Yeah, and West Hills was the same. They did the same at the training ground. So they do it, but they can't do it to the same sort of. They can't do a training ground naming rights for £1 billion like Man City can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose another thing that it kind of opens up is that they need to do something to bridge sort of the gap between obviously the Premier League and the Championship, like we said before, but also the flow of money between those as well. As you say, like if you get relegated from the Premier League, the amount of revenue you lose becomes.
We used to get parachute payments, didn't you? But I don't think they're a thing anymore.
Yeah, and then as you say, like if you're then getting point deductions, which then ends up in you being relegated from the Championship to League One, the money goes down even more. And then if you get relegated again to League Two, the money goes down even more. And then it's kind of making it more and more of an uphill battle for a club to not only be competitive, but just to survive.
But that could all be changing soon because the EFL's TV rights are up, aren't they? So there'll be companies trying to buy the TV rights for the EFL. So hopefully more teams will get more money because I think the thing at the moment is the Zone want to buy the rights and they want to live stream every EFL game.
Yeah.
So the 3 o'clock kickoffs. There'll be no blackout in the EFL anymore.
I think it's a good idea. I think that they need to look more at lower league investment. Definitely.
Well, the argument against it is that it takes away fans from actually going to the stadium, doesn't it?
But you need
you can watch it in your. I don't think it will either because like there's ways for people to watch the 3 o'clock kickoffs now. Like they're obviously they're not legal, but people do it. So anyone that wants to watch a 3 o'clock kickoff at home can do it if they want to. You're still going to get people that go for the love of being at a live football game. Like nothing matches being at the game, does it?
But I think if it's taking people away from actually going and watching the game, the clubs are obviously going to be benefiting from a lot of money from the TV rights that are being sold, where you'd hope that the clubs would benefit from a lot of money from the TV rights. But then also the clubs, with the benefit of that money, could do things like lowering ticket prices so fans can go and watch it.
At the moment, it's like 30 quid to go and watch the Blues. And that's a bottom end of the Championship. So if we were getting more money through TV rights because all of our games are now on TV, then they could start charging 15 quid a ticket. Now, if you turn around to me and said you could go watch the Blues for £15, I'm more likely going to go and watch it. Yeah. If I can take me and my son for under £30 instead of it costing me £40, you quit, you know, you're going to go and do it. even if it's just for the day out. And then if they can bring season ticket prices down, you'll get more people sign up to season tickets. Because the people who buy season tickets and the people that go to the ground would rather do that than watch it on the telly, even if they had the chance to.
Yeah,
And you
I
got
think
a lot of people in the world as well that can't watch their team. So you got people that support teams that aren't in that city. So then you got the expensive travel. Well,
They shouldn't exist, though, should they? You should be
most
watching things on your
unexposed
own
person you're gonna get. Yeah,
But like, for example, like, okay, so I support Liverpool, but if I had the opportunity to go and watch Birmingham City play, I would still go and watch them play. Like I have been to watch them play this season. I'd like to go to watch them play again. Like if you're a football fan in general, you would go and watch your local teams if the prices were affordable. If you're, for example, a Liverpool fan and you're seeing that Birmingham City are charging £30-40 a ticket, you kind of then weigh it up and say, well, you know, it's a bit too expensive to not go and watch the team I support.
Especially with the way that the current living crisis and all that sort of thing is, that people ain't got 30 quid anymore.
Yeah.
It's why you see. It's why you've seen more people. Like I started every now and again on international break. I'll go down Solihull Moors and go watch a Solihull Moors game, and you get more and more people there because it's. I think I went the other week and it was like £5 for a ticket, £10 a ticket, and the football's not the same, but 9 times out of 10, you go into the match. One, you want to watch the football and you want to see some good football, but actually, you just want to spend the day with your mates and have a drink and like. You're doing it to get out the house and go and have some fun.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. So,
like I went down the moors not long ago, and I missed all the goals because I was too busy at the bar.
It's not like you. So, moving the conversation back to Reading. Obviously, they're now 1 point above the relegation zone. I think it's fair to say that they haven't been great this season. Do we think that point deduction puts them in a real? Obviously, there's a possibility they can get relegated, but do you think that it's a very serious danger?
Point. I think it goes either way out. They either rally round and go, they've took a point off us, but we're going to show. They took some points off us, but we're going to show them. Or they go, oh, they're just messing us about. We've lost some points. We're going to get relegated now. Like it'll all depend on how Paul Ince can bring his team back and whether he can rally them into making it a us versus them kind of thing, and whether he can convince them that they need to now turn it around to prove a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things from my side. So, I mean, they're the only team at the moment in the Championship that haven't won a game in the last 5. So even Wigan have, which is quite a worrying statistic. And then the next thing, we all know who they've got next on Friday. I don't need to repeat who they got next. And it's just sods all. They'll start making up the points again, won't they? You know, we had a good win against Blackburn, and then they'll go and beat us. But I'm actually don't think. I think Reading might actually get pulled into it because I feel like, I mean, Huddersfield have won the last 2 games, unbeaten in 3 under Warnock, and I feel like he can motivate and push a team more.
Warnock's doing something down there, isn't
he? Yeah, the last game as well beating Middlesbrough, who have been on brilliant run of form lately.
Comfortably as well. It wasn't a scrappy win. They deserved the win. So, I mean, obviously you got Cardiff just below Reading as well in the middle of Reading and Huddersfield. But I actually think they're in trouble now.
Yeah,
I can see them slipping into it.
Okay, so just to give a quick recap, Reading have suffered a 6-point deduction for breaching EFL FFP rules for losing £57.8 million between 2017 and 2021, which now moves them to 20th position in the Championship, 1 point above Huddersfield, who are 22nd, and 6 above Wigan, who are currently.
And the Blues are going to batter them on Friday.
And the Blues are going to batter them on the weekend.
Hopefully.
So, Paul, changing the debate slightly, changing the pace slightly. Obviously, you wasn't involved in the call a bit earlier on when me and Ben discussed this, but Frank Lampard is taking the interim manager position at Chelsea. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
He's got nothing to lose, has he? If he goes in and steadies the ship and gets a couple of wins and pushes them up the table, he becomes a hero, and they all love him more than they already do. And if he doesn't, they just go, well, that's what we expected.
Yeah.
He's in a position where he's got nothing to lose, has he?
Well, from a Chelsea
think
point of
he's-
view, what do you think the thinking was behind Todd Bowley appointing him?
I don't know, maybe just trying to get the fans on board a little bit, bringing Frank back,
Yeah.
try and pick up a bit of. The fans love him, don't they? So bringing him back in might mean that the fans then stop disliking Todd. Because I've heard a lot of Chelsea fans that aren't happy about Todd Bowley more than anything else. They think he's a big part of the problem there.
Yeah, I think my favourite description of him so far has been he's like a kid with Football Manager.
That's exactly what he's like, and
Sure.
he's just
Yeah.
it's the summer transfer window. You've just give yourself £1 billion to spend because you sold some reserve team player, and then he's just throwing it about, buying loads of players,
Yeah.
and then you sit there wondering why your team ain't winning, even though you've got all the best players in the world.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go to a new segment where we're going to play a game called Opposite Ends. So, without further ado, I will explain the rules. So, as you can see here, we have a wheel which, when spun, will give the name of either me, Ben, or Paul. And what we have to do is basically defend the indefensible. So
Can we see the wheel? Where's the wheel?
Of course you can. So what I will do on this chat, I will share my screen so you can see it, just to make sure there's no cheating.
Yeah, I want to see the wheel.
Let me make sure that I share the right screen.
Show me the wheel. Show me the wheel. Show me the wheel.
Okay, then. So can you see my screen? Can you see the wheel?
Dun, dun. Oh, yeah.
Getting real bad feedback off it all.
Yeah.
You can't see the wheel.
No.
And nothing's loading. I can just hear myself over and over again.
Well, we're going to have to just trust you, I think.
I think you may have to just trust me. Okay, let me try this one. As a final one, can you see the wheel now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so can you see the wheel,
Yeah.
Paul? There we go. All right, then.
Wheel.
So, as you can see here, a list of the names. We've repeated them over and over again just to give it a bit more of a bit more tension. And then we have a second
Hold
wheel.
on. On the first wheel, is there an even amount of names?
There is an even amount of names. I think each name is in there. Should be 5 times, I do believe.
1, 2, 3, 4,
6.
5, 6.
There we go. 6 times. So there's an even amount.
As long as we're all in there 6 times, I'm all right with that.
And then we have a second wheel. Can you both see the second wheel?
Yeah.
And inside here, there's a list of topics that you will be forced to defend if it lands on you. So, let me just discuss what the topics are and let everybody know. So, the topics that you're going to have to defend are: Sean Dyche is a better manager than Jurgen Klopp. Leicester will finish in the top 4 next season. No manager will get sacked next season. Blues are the best run football club in the Football League. That's Blues is in Birmingham City. Guardiola deserves the sack if Man City don't win the
You
Champions
might need
League.
to take the wheel down because I can barely understand what you're saying.
Okay, I'll end my stream and I'll just carry on reading it out for you. So let's end this. Okay. Aston Villa could win the Europa League next season. Sheffield United will win the FA Cup. Burnley won't get promoted this season. Arsenal won't win the Premier League ever again. The Premier League is a farmer league. Espanyol are bigger than Barcelona. Preston would beat Bayern Munich if they played tomorrow. Wrexham will win the Premier League before Chelsea next do. The biggest derby in the world is the Bristol Derby. My personal favourite, Danny Drinkwater, is the best value for money purchase. Alex Ferguson was overrated, and Sam Allardyce is the most successful England manager. So we'll just do. Are you guys ready for me to do the spin?
Do it.
Okay. So, firstly, should we do the name first, or should we do this subject first?
I'll do the name first. Go on.
So then, the name is gonna be. It's gonna be me. Oh, for God's sake. And I have to defend.
So he has to convince us, Paul.
I have to convince you that no manager will get sacked next season.
Crack on then.
This is going to take some beating.
I mean, of all the ones I could have got, this is not the one that I wanted. Well, I think like when you look at how the Premier League's going now, and you look at how clubs are sacking managers left, right, and centre, I think clubs like Liverpool, with the way that they've stuck behind Jurgen Klopp and what he's achieved at them, like literally winning every trophy available to him. And then you look at how Arsenal were called Arteta. He was called for the sack, and then look what he's achieving now. I think that's going to convince clubs to think more about long-term projects than short-term gains. And I think that, the idea of keeping a manager for more than a season, letting them develop the club, is obviously something that's going to be adopted across all leagues and all clubs. So therefore, I think next season will break the trend and we will not see a single manager sacked.
You do know Chelsea will still be in the league next season.
Yeah, but I think Todd Bowley wants to prove, to not only the rest of the world, but to the Chelsea fans that obviously he's not Roman Abramovich. He's going to obviously back the new manager, whoever they sign. He's going to back them with money. He's going to back them with time. I can't see that with Chelsea buying a new striker that they're going to perform as badly as they have done this season. Therefore, anything as in a top half finish is a success for any manager that goes there. So why would you sack someone who's improving on what you're currently, where your current position is?
So if you're in the bottom 6, 10 games in, lost 10 games in a row, they're going to keep the faith, are they?
I think so because I think the fans, fans want longevity in a football club. At the end of the day, they don't want chopping and changing. They want a team that they can get behind. They want a manager who they can sing from the terraces. Someone like how Jurgen Klopp is worshipped at Liverpool, Pep Guardiola's worshipped at Man City. They want the exact same at their club. So I think 10 games.
So what about when Liverpool are 15th? Midway through next season.
Liverpool will never sack Jurgen Klopp. He will walk away, which technically does not contradict what I'm saying.
You think he'll walk away after he's lost 15 games in a row?
I think that he would. Yeah, I think he'd turn around and say, "I'm not the right guy, lads. I'm sorry. I'm leaving to let Liverpool bring someone in." So therefore, Liverpool will not sack Jurgen Klopp. Even if he did finish 15th next season, I think the Liverpool fans will be more than happy to keep Jurgen Klopp at the club and blame the owners instead.
I think fans would much rather not lose 15 games in a row and happily sack their manager in order to change their fortunes around.
Look, of course, no one wants to sack their manager. No one wants to lose games. None of us do. But it's an inevitability. Every team's going to lose. If you lose 15, then, it's a roll of the dice. Like the sod's law is the next one's going to be yours. And I think that, it's proven. Look at Chelsea, for example, today. Yesterday, sorry. Under Graham Potter, they couldn't score a goal. They sacked the manager. Someone new was taken over. What does he do? He can't score a goal. It proves that sacking your manager doesn't make changes. So therefore, you might as well have just kept him. Leicester City, they were losing games left, right and centre under Brendan Rodgers. What do? Sack him. First game, they lose. It proves that change doesn't happen. The grass isn't always greener. And I think that clubs are starting to wake up to this.
I think you put a compelling argument. I'm not going to lie. Paul, are you convinced?
No.
Not
in the slightest we're convinced.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought you actually done like a really good analysis there, but yeah, I'm not.
This still dinosaur he's not convinced either.
Well, I tried my best.
That's a good effort.
I genuinely didn't expect.
It was a good effort. It was like listening to a Tory politician.
Well, if this doesn't take off very well, at least I have a career in politics to go to, I suppose.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah. So, so I think what we'll do is I'll open it up to you guys if there's anything that you guys want to discuss.
No, I mean there was a few in there that I'd love Paul to try and answer, but
we'll have to wait.
What in the thingy that we're just on about?
Oh, there's plenty more
in the game.
There's plenty more. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We will remove the no managers getting sacked next season.
I'll throw it out there now. If you try and make me talk about how the Villa can do anything, I'll just refuse to do it.
Bit of mark out.
Yeah, we'll have to think of a forfeit in case for people that don't even try.
I'd rather do the forfeit.
What if the forfeit was to wear a Villa kit?
Yeah,
No.
go to a Villa game, the whole end.
No, I'd go to Villa. I've sat in the whole end at Blues Villa.
Yeah, but you'd have to cheer when Villa score.
No, couldn't do it. I'd rather punch my own child in the face.
Oh, God. We'll clip that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, well, thank you both for joining today's podcast. Just to give a quick recap before we leave, Reading suffered a 6-point deduction due to breaching financial fair play rules, which now leaves them 1 point above the relegation zone. And then a quick point about Frank Lampard being appointed as Chelsea interim manager, overseeing the club until the end of the season. So, thank you everyone for watching, and thank you both for joining.
Pleasure.